Hello, everybody, and welcome to Britball with the Breens, episode number 11. Today, again, we'll do our usual. We'll go through the results from the weekend past, the fixtures for this weekend coming up, and we'll go through the scenarios that Chris has kindly listed out in great detail for the he's sad. So we'll go through those before we end, and we'll put up what we think is the combined Division 1 power rankings for just now. So without further ado, we had some really good games this week, some not so good games with a few blowouts. So we'll get cracking. In the Prem North, Merseyside Nighthawks 6, Tamworth Phoenix 30. I think it's fair to say that Tamworth must have been a bit hacked off that they were rated to be that close. It was going to be that close a game, and have decided to turn on the show in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and there has been a lot of questions asked about Tamworth, especially after that loss to Manchester. Still not looking like themselves from last year or the year before, but with the amount of players they lost in the off-season, these things happen. It's still a good win. It keeps them as the front runner for the conference title going into this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, although their offense definitely hasn't been fighting the same, over the last couple of weeks their defense has started to shut folk out. So we'll see what they can do going into this last few weeks and into the playoffs. The other game in that division, Leicester Falcons 6, Manchester Titans 38. Falcons at home, massive loss for them.
Yeah, it was being live streamed. It was another good show. Sort of, the stream service was great. Manchester just looked a cut above them, and they really started to struggle down the stretch. So it's a big loss at home. Not exactly the confidence booster that I've been looking for going into this sort of relegation decider this weekend. It's another solid win for Manchester. Again, they're going to be so frustrated about that loss to Edinburgh now, but they go into the game with Tamworth, owning the head-to-head, but now having that one loss extra.
An interesting interview with the Leicester Falcons head coach before. Apparently both Leicester and Manchester Titans head coaches stepping down, but the interesting one from Leicester was obviously earlier in the year saying that because they couldn't use the playbook that was meant for the Americans that were coming across, but they're now saying to do with BAFA, they're a terrible organisation to be part of, etc, etc. Now we know they're not overly great at times, and can understand where he's coming from, but I mean, if you plan it, then to be fair, you're going to struggle. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to them over the next couple of weeks. They've got a huge game this weekend, and then it'll be interesting to see what happens going into next season. In the Prem South, Bristol Aztecs 30, Farnham Knights 0. Bristol have got better as the season went on. Started scoring some points. Don't know if Farnham are preparing themselves for next week, or just didn't fire on the day. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think it's more likely Farnham did show up. I think the Bristol were still in that relegation mix until this win. Now they're safe. They'll be looking at sort of now towards that Kent Exiles game. It is now the decider. I think they'll have turned up. I think Bristol just put on a good display.
Yeah. The London Blitz 42, Kent Exiles 0. Again, this could be the same. Are Kent saving something for this week when they go to Farnham? Or did a better Blitz just turn up and put one on them? The answer is, but a great win for the Blitz as well.
It's a comfortable win again, and it just shows the difference. There's obviously that big gap between Warriors and Blitz, but there's also a big gap between the Blitz and everybody else.
Yeah.
We'll kind of find out just how big those gaps are come playoff time. Blitz were already secure in the playoffs. They can't move up to the number 1 spot. They can only stay in number 2. Probably why it was 42. I mean, it's still a big scoreline, but we've seen bigger. And that's probably played a factor in it. They maybe rested a few key guys.
Yeah. And speaking of the gap here, London Warriors 58, London Olympians 0. So that's the difference between them and everyone else. The Olympians have been closer to London Blitz this year, but still 58-0 for London is just so comfortable by the looks of it.
Yeah, and 3 shutouts in the Prem. It's not a good look. And even when you consider sort of the 5 games total in the Premiership, there's 2 teams with 6 points and 3 teams with nothing. It's not great from a competitive standpoint. Then again, on the flip side of that, when it comes to the Warriors, is there anyone that can actually even compete with them? Probably not.
You just expect even a fluke touchdown, now and again, fluke touchdown or one wayward pass or something like that, but it just doesn't seem to happen. So
you'd expect by this point of the season with that kind of score lines that their Warriors are down to 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th string guys. You like to hope people can put points up in that perspective, but the Warriors have proved to be quite ruthless, and maybe in that case they've played that way as well.
Yeah, potentially. In the NFC 1 North, a huge win for the Northumberland Vikings. What a snore fest the game was. Obviously being our division, we were watching, see what happened. Terrible weather, I think. But just penalty after penalty after penalty, like literally hundreds and hundreds of yards of penalties. And I don't know if that's a show on the teams or if that was just the way the things were on that day.
Yeah, I mean, I found that the amount of penalties was a big surprise. I mean, we've seen these teams get penalised when we've played them, but not to that extent. I mean, you talk about, what was it, the 3rd play from scrimmage, East Kilbride Pirates quarterback breaks off an 80-yard run and it's wiped out by a penalty, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the day. For such an explosive offense of East Kilbride, they'll be extremely disappointed. I appreciate, judging by what they were saying, it was quite hard to tell on the film, but the weather was atrocious.
Yeah.
But a shutout and a 5-0 win, a great win for Northumberland. Can't take that away from them. It's a great win. They knew they needed to win by 3 or more. They won by 5. They'll be delighted about that. Puts them in their fate in their own hands.
Yeah. So that was one game that is turned on its head. So that's got something we've discussed later. Glasgow Tigers fall. So Glasgow rounding out their season winning 40-0 to over Gateshead, who have obviously already been relegated, so no much surprise there.
No, I mean, the biggest surprise about this was actually the fact that the Tigers were only 7-0 up at half time. We've played them twice. We really find them quite gritty at their own place, but they really struggled up here. Glasgow, they obviously now look towards that final game away to the Yorkshire Rams to try and get to 500. And they'll be looking to try and finish 3rd in the division. Yeah,
and they do, but in terms of numbers, they have much bigger numbers at home than they take away. So something they could look at for next season anyway. The NFC 1 South, Sandwell Steelers 42, Shropshire Revolution 0. For the top 2 seeds, really, at the moment, looks like that. Sandwell just looking too strong as normal.
Yeah, and they've looked like that all year, and there's been no drop off. It just keeps getting better and better, and they'll be filled with confidence going in the playoffs. I don't think I'd be lying to say that they probably tuned in to see the East Kilbride Northumberland game, obviously after their own, and probably were licking their lips at the opportunity of playing these 2 teams with the way it was played.
Yeah.
4 games in Division 1, 4 teams get shut out. It's not a good look, especially when you've got 40, 42 and 60-0 drubbins.
Yeah, 60-0 Chester Romans versus Doncaster.
Yeah, but
Chester are a new Division 1 team.
I mean, Doncaster have struggled all year, but 60-0 is a hide and a half.
Yeah. In the SFC 1 Central, Berkshire Renegades 6, Solent Thrashers 37. Another good win for Solent. They have really come on leaps and bounds through the season. Got stronger all the way through, and they obviously secured their division title this week, so well done to Solent. Oxford Saints 18, Sussex Thunder 55. Now this scoreline does not reflect what seems to have happened in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, we tuned in to check out the scores, and it was 12-0 Oxford at one point, and we thought, my word, Sussex have just totally capitulated, but they obviously fixed what was going wrong.
Well, we've seen what went wrong.
Well, we've seen part of what went wrong. Obviously, kudos to the Oxford Saints player getting his first touchdown in the pick six. Right place, right time. Still made the play and made the return, but you actually seen a Sussex coach on the sideline showing his frustration. The play, and you can't blame him. It was a shocking play. But they obviously fixed the errors, and it ended up being a good, strong win. And they still have that opportunity to steal second from Hertfordshire.
Yeah, guess the biggest thing for them is you can't do that in the playoffs.
Not at all.
Can't do that in the playoffs. The SFC 1 East, Ouse Valley Eagles 24, Colchester Gladiators 14. Not actually overly surprised with this result. I actually thought Ouse Valley would beat Colchester when they were away from home. But again, whether Ouse Valley will feel happy that they're going down a division to rebuild, or they should put a division on that.
Yeah, and I mean, from a situation, meant they've been relegated when they. I think it highlights another issue that Colchester have got a lot of work to do, knowing that they're going to be staying in Division 1 next year. When had Ouse Valley not forfeited a game, they wouldn't have been. Now they have to really sort of rebuild and try and make it.
Yeah, and the other game in that division. Now I don't know whether the London Hornets can't move up in their division, so they've already got the seed get. So I don't know if they've played seconds or if it's because of an away game, but I had a distinct feeling that Bury were going to do this. And 30-12 versus the Hornets.
Yeah, I mean, the Hornets could have still stolen the crown. They were obviously relying on somebody else because they got that win against the Cats.
Yeah,
they would have needed to win. That's to play all their starters, realising that the chances the Cats aren't going to lose to Colchester.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I guess we don't know. But Bury have looked good all year. The result isn't a surprise because of how well they have played all year. If any games they've lost, it's been by a tight margin.
Yeah.
They got the job done on this occasion.
I've voted for them a few times and they've not won. And the 1 week I thought, this time, you know what? Last time I didn't go with the Hornets, they won and that was it. Bury do them over. So, and then FC2 North, no games again. They've not played in a while. Then FC2 Central, Morecambe Bay 12, Nottingham Raiders 28. Now, Morecambe Bay, as you've said before, have put up points in the past and kind of things, but they were at home and they lost 28-12 to the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, the Raiders are obviously having a decent season,
Decent enough that might get them in the playoffs.
Well, into the surge. It's. I tried to predict. I thought that Morecambe Bay might be able to win this game, and was feeling pretty happy about myself when it was 12-all in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. Nottingham obviously just managed to get the job done in the end, winning sort of 28-12 is a good result. It keeps their season alive. Looking forward, there's a high likelihood they end up in the 8th seed, and to be quite frank, you have to worry for them because that probably means they're going to have to face the Bulls.
Gads. No one happening. Leeds Bobcats 6, Halton 36. Now, Leeds are at home there. Halton's closest challengers in that league. Now, this really doesn't tell us much about Halton's division, although that's their closest rivals. They are a fair bit above them. So it should put them in pretty good stead come the playoffs. The only thing is that they've pitched all year. So, I mean, when it comes to the playoffs, are they going to be ready for that challenge? We won't know until they get there.
Focused. They're very strong on social media. They've obviously got the great stadium. They're doing a good job this year. I think they're really trying to build something there.
Made the quarters last year.
It's a good win. 6-6 away from home against the second place team in your division, and bearing in mind how far the second place team have looked ahead of the rest, it's a strong win. It's preparing them, for playoffs, I guess, having a little bit of a tougher contest, but it also kind of reaffirms what we've said about Leeds, that they might have been
fifth.
unhappy about the fact that people didn't agree with their rankings, but the bottom line is that they've now played a top end team in Halton twice and been battered twice.
Yeah. They were 5th in the power rankings.
At one
5th.
point, yeah.
I don't know who's voting for them, but they were 5th in the power ranking. I don't know how. Anyway, the NFC 42, Crew Railroaders 20. Humber have been getting better and better as the season goes on. They look decent this year. If they keep building, they might have a chance of having a good year next year as well. Good win over Crew at home.
Yeah, and it's a strong win. 42 is a lot of points. They've obviously shipped 20 as well. They'll sure be looking to tighten up the defense next year, but it's good to get those kind of points on the board repeatedly, kind of performances. It's a good strong win. They'll be pleased with that.
Yeah. The SFC2 West, the Torbay Trojans 53, Cornish Sharks 20. Trojans just cementing themselves as that number 2 team in that division, pretty much. Worcestershire Black Knights 0, Bristol Apache 47. 0 points at home. Not overly great.
No, but it's been a rough year for the Blacks. The Sauce. They've come from a year where they forfeited a playoff game last year and they're now winless this season. Is that because a few of their more competitive guys went, I'm not having any of this if we're just going to forfeit the playoffs and went elsewhere? We don't know. But it's another...
Or went to a team that's just created itself.
Well, it's another heavy loss.
Down the road, so...
Torby, looking back at that game as well, 20 to the Sharks.
Yeah. The SFC2 South, Bournemouth Bobcats 46, Hastings Conquerors 0.
Yeah, we're now down to 2 games left for Hastings to actually get a point on the board. I don't know what the motivation must be at this point in the season, but it can't be high. They've got to face Jurassic Coast and then Bournemouth again, and you'd have to think that Jurassic Coast may well be their only opportunity to try and get points on the board.
0 points in a season
is grim.
Yeah, especially when Sussex is literally across the road.
Well, if anyone, I'd love to know if anyone could probably confirm this outside of anyone, forfeiting a season. If any team has ever actually completed a full season with 0 points, I imagine if there has been, there's not been many. So it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah. And I'd say Jurassic Coast Raptors, they're 16, London Blitz 59, so another wipeout in that division. At least Jurassic Coast put up some points, but 59 points for the London Blitz away from home is another good result.
Yeah, London Blitz just carrying on, just keep it on going. If you're Jurassic Coast, you're happy to put up 16, I guess. And if you're Hastings, you're looking at Jurassic Coast a little bit terrified that they managed to put up 16 on the Blitz B.
Yeah. The last game, FC2 East Kent Mavericks 14, Essex Spartans 23. Essex still undefeated in that division, away from home, taking the spoils. So they're looking good just now for the playoffs now.
Yeah, another nice competitive win. In fact, actually, Essex Spartans managed to seal their crown. They've won that conference, so they're guaranteed one of the top 3 seeds, and if my math doesn't fail me, I believe they're actually currently in the first place and the number 1 seed, which guarantees them home playoffs throughout home football throughout the playoffs rather. Mm-hmm. Should they progress, so they'll be really pleased with how their season's going so far. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch. Now that's all the results. Big shout out to Bury and the Vikings this week. They only had 17% of the votes. Both managed wins, so bravo to your 2 teams. If we look on to this week's fixtures now, we'll refer to Chris. So we've got the massive games this week. In the Premiership North, Edinburgh Wolves versus Leicester Falcons. Now, this is a huge game. If Edinburgh lose this, they're pretty much done. Well, we'll cover that in a minute, and probably once we've got to the end of the 3 games in the Premiership, I'll go through everything that, again, I believe my calculations are correct.
Yeah.
This is a huge clash. Yeah. Ultimately, this for these teams is do or die. You want to stay in the Premier Division. You want to try and build and compete for next year. Edinburgh at home. So it'll be interesting to see how this game pans out and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, and you've picked Leicester, and I've picked Edinburgh.
I mean,
and
deep down, I've obviously spent a bit of time sort of with the Wolves guys when you were there, and I like the Edinburgh Wolves. It's kind of selfish reasons that I put them to lose.
Yeah. Shorter
Mostly
travel
so
buses.
We've got a shorter bus next year. No disrespect to the Edinburgh Wolves. I really hope they actually win and stay up.
Yeah.
But
one thing that is interesting, something the head coach from Leicester said last week as well, he said he had 21 players on injured reserve. Now, whether that's true or not is a different story, because they still had 25 boys fit, so that's an awful lot of guys who's saying injured, but if that is the case, then they could be struggling. Manchester Titans versus Tamworth Phoenix. Again, interesting one there. I don't know what the playoff implications are for this, but Manchester coming off a really big win, Tamworth coming off a really big win, so it could be a good game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when it comes to the decider, the conference decider, this is it. When it comes to the Prem North, these two teams, have fate in their own hands. So it should be a really competitive game. Do I foresee a repeat of the 21-0 win for Manchester? No. I think this will be tight. I can see Tamworth sneaking it through.
Yeah. The only thing over Manchester is they're at home this time. Yeah. So, in the last game in the division is Sheffield Giants versus Merseyside Nighthawks. Merseyside coming off a bit of a hefty defeat to Tamworth. I actually think this will be a pretty competitive game. The Giants haven't given up all season. It'd just be whether they can keep Merseyside's offence at bay.
Yeah, and I mean the interesting part of this is Merseyside, still have an opportunity here. They can still make the playoffs. Sheffield aren't out of trouble yet. Both teams are going to be fighting for their lives. I think that one should be a great game.
Yeah. And so what's the outcomes of this one?
Right, well, we'll get to the easy bit first. Straight off the bat, the Manchester Titans and the Tamworth Phoenix. If Manchester win, they're the division winners. They win the Prem North and they'd be the number one seed from that conference. If Tamworth tie it or win, then they'll be the conference champions and they'll be the number one seed.
Okay.
Where that game then gets interesting is should Tamworth get the win and Merseyside beat Sheffield, then Merseyside would actually go above Manchester in the second spot and would actually wipe them out of the playoffs altogether due to the head-to-head. And that when we spoke earlier on in the season about the late points they conceded in that game, and it may turn out to cost them a playoff spot.
Yeah, interesting that one.
Right, and then on to the relegation scrap. It's been well documented that there's still three teams very much in this. So, there's three teams in the top, there's three teams at the bottom. There's a few things to go through. So we'll start at the top. If Leicester Falcons win, the Wolves are relegated. That's regardless of the Sheffield result, because Sheffield own the head-to-head over Edinburgh, so that result becomes irrelevant. Should Edinburgh win, along with a Merseyside win, I think I've done that incorrect. I think it would be Leicester. No, I am right. It would be Sheffield relegated because Edinburgh would have 3 wins. Sheffield and Leicester would have 2 each, and Leicester on the head-to-head. If Edinburgh win and Sheffield win, that would relegate Leicester. Again, 3 wins a pop, and Leicester with only the 2. However, interestingly enough, if Edinburgh and Leicester tie and Merseyside win, Sheffield would be relegated because all 3 teams would have 2 wins, but Edinburgh and Leicester would have a tie each, which would put them above Sheffield and would relegate them. So, coin flip, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting this week to watch. Some good ties there. In the south, not so interesting in the top. London Blitz versus London Olympians. London Blitz have been run closer this year by a few teams. I can't see the Olympians troubling them too much, but it should be an interesting game.
Yeah, well, we don't know if Blitz just rest guys for the playoffs. They're secure, they can't be caught. It doesn't really matter for the Olympians either. They can't be relegated, they can't move up, so it could be a bit of a nothing game. Who knows?
Yeah. The Bristol Aztecs at home to the London Warriors. Well, we know how this one's going to go. The Warriors will win this one comfortably, I would think, even with Bristol being at home. Can't see anything else.
Yeah, I can't foresee London really in anything less than a 10-0 season. Bristol are safe, so whether there's any motivation there either, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. The last game, however, Kent Exiles versus Farnham Knights at the Exiles is a massive game.
Yeah. Interestingly, obviously, Farnham won the last meeting between the two, which gives them the head-to-head. However, Kent managed to get a second win elsewhere. They got 2 wins outside of Farnham, so they're 1 win ahead of them at the moment, and that allows them the fact that if they either win or tie this game, they will stay up and Farnham will go down. Because of that win, Farnham have to win this game.
Yeah.
There's no points differential, doesn't come into it anymore because it's 2 wins plays 1 at the moment. But if Farnham obviously win, then at that point it would be head to head.
Yeah.
So Kent can afford to tie or win this game and stay up.
Okay, so that's that. The 2 Prem. In the NFC 1 North, the Yorkshire Rams play the Glasgow Tigers at home. So now Yorkshire have had a good second half of the season. They've powered through. Glasgow struggle away from home, so I see Yorkshire probably winning this one.
Yeah, I mean, this one could be tight. I mean, Yorkshire have had a bit of a break as well, a couple of weeks. Glasgow obviously coming off a big win against Gateshead. I think Yorkshire might actually win this one, but it'll be close.
Yeah, and the other game, Northumberland Vikings at home to us. We'll not say too much. I think it'll be an interesting game. However, I believe that our Scottish counterparts may well be rooting for us in this one.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, East Kilbride season's finished, so they're 9-1. Northumberland are currently sort of 8-1, I believe. So, if they tie or get beat by ourselves on Sunday, then East Kilbride would take back over that first place spot. So, still a lot to play for Northumberland. We've still got a chance to secure 3rd place and get to 500, so it should be a really good game. It's also being live streamed, so hopefully we can put on a good show.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a decent game. They usually are, so we'll see how they go. In the NFC 1 South, Nottingham Caesars home to Shropshire Revolution. Nottingham, middle of the pack team in this division this year. They've had some really good results. They've had some not so great ones, but they have a chance to ruin Shropshire's dreams this year in this game, so that'll be an interesting one. I think Shropshire's defence is decent enough to hold them and propel them to a win in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about this is these 2 teams have the same record, and Nottingham currently hold the head-to-head. However, only Shropshire winning have a chance to make the playoffs because Lancashire have beaten Nottingham twice. So, even a Lancashire loss and Nottingham win would still leave Lancashire in there. So Nottingham don't really have anything to play for, per se. Shropshire will try and sneak into the playoffs knowing that a win, coupled with Lancashire getting beat, would be enough to take them into the playoffs.
Yeah, and Lancashire are facing Sandwell.
Steelers.
So even though Sandwell are safe, and they're going to be the number 1 seed anyway, they're not going to. I don't think they're going to take their feet off the gas here. I think they'll go out and hammer Lancashire in the last game here.
Well, interestingly enough, with that, if there was any thought of Sandwell resting players going into the playoffs, they're going to be not just looking at the first round of the playoffs, they'll be looking at the second, and assuming the same tiebreakers apply, they're only 7 points conceded better off than Northumberland. So if Northumberland could win a shutout and Sandwell lose by 8 points, then it would mean, should those teams progress to face each other, that game would then be played in Northumberland, not in Sandwell. So I very much doubt they'll be taking foot off the gas here. They'll probably be playing full squad, full ready to go, and trying to inflict as much pain on Lancashire as possible.
Yeah, you'd think so. So some interesting ones there. In the SF1 Central, Solent Thrashers versus Hertfordshire Cheetahs. Almost did that again. Solent looking really good just now. They're at home. Hertfordshire need to win this game. It's a must-win game for Hertfordshire now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing the head-to-head with Sussex was huge. I touched on it last week, but again, it's worth pointing out that Hertfordshire have had a really great season in their first year in Division 1. They do need to win or tie to secure the playoffs. Either one works. I'm sure they prefer to win. Again, though, Solent are going to be in the same boat as Sandwell. They can't really afford to rest many guys because a loss and a few point swing would let the cats in, sort of.
Let the cats in.
Solent will be going all guns blazing for this game too. This should be a great game. But as I say, Solent have really looked strong towards the end of the season. I think it'll be tough for Hertfordshire to win.
Yeah, I think so. I think Solent are a real good outfit. Sussex Thunder at home to the Berkshire Renegades. Now, Sussex can't afford to make little mistakes here. See this Berkshire. They have got much better as the seasons went on. Lost heavily to Solent last week.
Hard to give away 12 early on in the game. They did it against Oxford. They got away with it. Might not be so fortunate against Berkshire. They've also got to look after their own fate here because a win coupled with a Hertfordshire loss puts them into the playoffs in that second spot. But let's not forget that Berkshire are going to be fighting for their lives as well. If they can, I believe if they match or better the Oxford result, then they are safe in Division 1 for another year.
Okay, so that's an interesting one for them then. And the last game it's not the last game. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, Portsmouth Dreadnoughts versus Oxford Saints. Portsmouth started off well, seemed to have struggled the last few weeks to kind of put up points and get some wins. So this one might be a close game.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're looking at, do Portsmouth have anything really left to play for? I'm sure they'll want to round out their first season, which has also been a strong one on a high. But they are coming up against an Oxford Saints team that are also fighting for their lives, and they need to better the Berkshire result, and it's enough to keep them safe. So it's going to be a tough one because Oxford aren't going to be lying down. They aren't going to be willing just to accept going down to Division 2. Yeah,
so that's going to be an interesting one as well. So that whole division's good. In the SFC 1 East, Wembley Stallions at home to the Bury Saints. Now, Wembley, like the Saints, have looked decent all year, have just struggled to get wins when it really mattered. I can't see them beating Bury this time. I think Bury will beat them here. But it should be another good game. It should be a points fest, I would think.
Well, as you pointed out, Wembley have been close in pretty much all of their games all year. Bury are another team that have been sort of close games. If there was any question about Bury's motivation, it's long gone with their win last week. I think actually Bury win this quite comfortably.
Yeah. The other game in that division, Cambridgeshire Cats versus Colchester Gladiators. Can only see this being a bit of a hammering, depending on what the Cats are prepared to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Cats obviously secured their division crown or the conference crown, on the back of that London loss. I'm fairly confident that the Cats would have secured the crown on their own anyway with a victory over Colchester, but I'm sure they're more than relieved that it's already sealed anyway. The inevitable's kind of happened without them even having to take to the football field.
Yeah, and there's no scenarios for them, is there? Other than if Sandwell let up too much.
No, it's different. It's
different divisions. Solent, sorry. So they look like they're in a strong position. The NFC 2 North has it. Oh no, it doesn't have a game.
It does.
Oh, it does have a game.
It does.
I was getting excited there because Darlington are playing Carlisle. Of course they're not. It's a walkover. But however, the Dumfries Hunters are playing Clyde Valley Blackhawks. Clyde Valley undefeated at the moment. They've had a few weeks off. Just a few.
6 weeks since the last game, I think. I'm sure.
So they better be healthy.
I know.
And hopefully not rusty.
Well, I mean that becomes the factor, isn't it? It's how have they trained over the course of the weeks? Have guys saying I've lost a bit of motivation, which is understandable with that kind of a break. But I'm sure the coaching staff have reminded their players that that this is a big game. This is a huge game for Clyde Valley. They dropped down. They dropped to associate status just a couple of years back. They're trying to build themselves back up. They put themselves in a great position, where if they win or tie this game, they're the division champs. They take their conference, which obviously guarantees them one of the top 3 seeds in a home playoff game. Interestingly, though, I'm sure it's in the back of their mind, if they don't know already, that due to their situation with Dumfries and Inverclyde still to play, they own the head-to-head over both. However, losing back-to-back games to Dumfries and Inverclyde could be catastrophic for them and have them finishing third in the division. I don't see it happening. I think Clyde Valley have been too well drilled this year. They're too well organised, and I think they get the job done this weekend and seal the conference.
Yeah, and they've got some seasoned heads for experience in that team.
Yeah.
Dumfries are just coming off a massive win, so it should be a good game. I think Clyde Valley might hold out, though. In the NFC 2 Central, Nottingham Raiders versus Leeds Bobcats. You'd like to say this game has nothing going for it, but it actually does, really, for that third team playoff spot in this division.
Yeah, well, Leeds have already secured a playoff berth. I kind of pointed out earlier this week that due to the fact that one of the other third place teams couldn't get the same amount of wins they've already guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. Nottingham are obviously chasing one, but a win or a tie secures second place for Leeds, and obviously kind of keeps them in that hunt for getting that first round home game. So they'll be up for it. Given the scoreline when these last 2 teams met, I can't see it going any other way than a Leeds win.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think Leeds will win this one. Just depends how much they want to switch off, knowing they're already secure. In the NFC 2 South, Crewe Railroaders at home to Lincolnshire Bombers. I've not seen the Bombers in a while. However, they've had a very good season, very strong team look like this year. So I think they just go in, get the job done, head off to the playoffs in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah,
well, they're in that second place spot, locked in their division. But again, it's worth remembering that they're trying to secure that number 4 spot. And in doing so, again, they're competing with Leeds in that respect, to try and get sort of Inverclyde or Dumfries or Clyde Valley as well, to get that number 4 seeding, make sure they get a home game to start with.
Yeah, and you want that, especially
absolutely.
In the playoffs. SFC2 South, Hastings Conquerors versus Jurassic Coast Raptors. Oh, well, you might see Hastings score their first points of the season.
I mean, yeah. We could. We might not. We probably won't. But, it's not exactly terrifying opposition they're facing in the Jurassic Coast Raptors. They'll obviously be a bit pleased coming off of putting 16 up on Blitz B, that which could spell disaster for Hastings. Not much to say about this.
No. The other game of that division is Swindon Storm at home to London Blitz B. London Blitz B still have stuff to make sure that they're one of the top seeds. So they'll just want to go into Swindon and batter them, I would think.
Yeah, and I think the thing is London still have their own business to take care of. Swindon also kind of need to win this game, because with the way the divisions work, with different people not playing teams twice or whatever, means that at the moment they're kind of in that outside looking in situation come the end of the season for that 7th or 8th seed in the playoffs.
Yeah. The last game in the SFC2 East, Ipswich Cardinals at home to East Kent Mavericks. Ipswich have competed in every game this year, I think. They've done a decent job. Had some really close games, some draws. East Kent struggling a little bit. I think you showed me a picture a couple of days ago. They used to be in the top division, which is totally mental. But I think Ipswich take this one because they're at home.
Yeah, well, interestingly, Ipswich have only lost 1 game this year. They've tied twice. And kind of going back to what I said about the Swindon Storm, in the respect that, if Swindon lose and Ipswich win, then Swindon are eliminated from the playoffs and Ipswich are guaranteed a spot as well. So, there's plenty of motivation there. They're still trying to get as many wins as they can going into the playoffs. It's been a up and down season for East Kent. I'm sure they'd like to finish on a high.
Yeah. So that's all the fixtures. Last thing on the list today, is, of course, our look at the Division 1 power rankings. So what we've done is just done a combined top 5 this time. So we'll give you a look at them. So, no real shocker as to who our number 1 is. Sandwell have looked good all season. Don't look like they're going to give up to anybody, to be fair. And really, I think they are the team to beat in Division 1. However, Solent have looked good over the last couple of weeks. They've put some good performances in over the season. So, be interesting to see how they go through the playoffs into the division finals, probably. Cambridgeshire Cats have looked good. They've only had that one loss to the Hornets, who have got it 4. Hornets could have easily been up in the top 2 here, but I think just that loss against Bury last week, but the loss against the Cats, we can't really put them any higher. And then East Kilbride, I still think East Kilbride have more potential to do damage in the playoffs than the Vikings at the moment. However, that game on Sunday will have maybe put them down the rankings a bit where they were.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see. Be interested to see where these guys finish up.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we don't know until they play each other, and that's how it's kind of going to work, like it always works going forward. But this is the last sort of weeks of Premiership and Division 1 football. Still another week, I believe, to go of Div 2, and then we get into the exciting stuff.
Yeah, so shows over next week might be a bit boring, but we'll persist through. So this has been Britball with the Breens. Again, thanks for watching. Hopefully we're giving enough information out. Chris does his homework on what all the scenarios are and everything, and we'll watch a bit more film nowadays. So if you've got anything, let us know, and we'll do our best to get on. Thank you very much.